we've really got to understand how electricity works. We're in the electrical field. It is a hazardous field, but we're also some of the best trained people, but we've got to kind of get back to basics.
Hey, and welcome to the Electrical Safety Podcast. I'm your host, John Travis, and today I'm speaking with Mack Turner. Mack is the Executive Director at ISPC, and I'll let you tell us a little bit more about what that involves here just in a second. But yeah, thanks, Matt, for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for the invite. I appreciate that. It's always nice to talk about the important things.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we try to do here. So, I mean, just to kind of give people a bit of a background, on yourself. I'm always interested, not just in where you are today, but how you ended up where you are today. If you got a bit of a backstory, feel free to take as long as you want, or make it as short and sweet as you want. But yeah, why don't you let people know kind of where you came from and what you're up to now?
Well, I started life in southern Utah in the mountains and grew up and actually went to college and got an ag business degree. I took over my parents' farming and ranching operation and started slowly starving to death. So I looked for a new job, and I answered an ad and ended up going to work for an electrical co-op, and then from there on to a large electrical contractor and then an electrical utility, and then to the position where I am now. I kind of got into the industry because I needed a job, but then I kind of fell in love with it because I really enjoy what we do as an industry, and I enjoy being part of a better or a bigger picture.
Yeah. No, that's great. So with ISPC specifically, like what is it that you guys are focused on?
Okay, so we're a not-for-profit company. We're focused on electric utility safety and training. We believe that nobody has to get hurt. That doesn't have to be the instance. Nobody's got to die. And we believe that one of the big ways that we can help people is through good training. So at ISPC, we supply curriculum. We go on site and teach craft training. We go into leadership training. We go into safety training. We build programs, work methods, safety manuals. We do auditing. And then we also get into the litigation side of things when things go bad. But, really it's about employee safety. And that's our main message is, we can work safely, and here's how we try and do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. So what what is it that you feel is really important for safety training to make it more engaging, better safety training that's actually going to work? It's actually going to get the message across. What are some of the key things that you guys focus on?
Well, if you look at adult learning principles, one of the main things that training needs to be is relevant. If we don't see the need for it as adults, we tend to turn it out. So we got to make it relevant. Two, you got to make it interesting, because as adults, we got a lot on our mind. We got a lot of things going. And so we want to get into it and absorb it and then go on to other things. And then after that, and I believe that everybody deserves the training that they need to be able to do a task that they're assigned. I believe us as employers have a responsibility to our employees to provide good training and give them the tools and the things that they need to succeed in the job. But I also believe, beyond training, that we as humans and adults deserve to be held accountable. And sometimes that's not really what happens in our industry. And a lot of incidents happen because we're not holding ourselves as accountable for our own personal safety and our own personal development as we should be.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something, spoken to with other guests, and getting into the idea of complacency in the workplace, and, maybe just getting a bit too comfortable. But I still don't know what the answer is. How do you get people to sort of change their behavior and change the way that they think about safety? What are some of the things that you've thought about or that you guys have tried to implement there with behavioral change?
Well, we see, we see a lot of clients in a year, and we talk to an awful lot of people, and we're all over the place, and that. But there's really some common themes here. I believe that us as employees, we want to work safely. We want to know how to be safe and all of that. But sometimes we don't put as much emphasis on it, especially with some of the older crowd that's been in the industry a while. They've been trained and they know what they need to do, and they just want somebody to get out of the way and let them do it. The problem
Mhm.
is a lot of times we get so busy doing what we got to do to keep the lights on or whatever you want to say, that we overlook some of the safety principles and the things that we really ought to be paying attention to. I just did a webinar for ECOS just yesterday, and it was back to basics, electricity 101. And I see where we tend to forget about the basic electrical principles and how electricity works. We're busy getting the lights on, but we're not really watching what's going to get us from an electrical standpoint or anything else. And and that's kind of an expectation that the industry has bred in us as workers. We're really pressed to get the lights on as quickly as possible or get the
Mhm.
job done as quickly as possible. And we really need to start preaching as employers and as employees, let's slow down. Let's take a minute. Let's do a good tailboard and let's answer all the questions. Let's make sure that we can do this task safely. And when we have a question in the middle of doing it, we got to take the time out and say, no, wait a minute. We're not quite understanding this. This is not going the way that we should. Somebody's going to get hurt. Let's reevaluate and go back at it. Because we're going to get the job done. That's just who we are. But you look at the amount of people still getting killed or getting hurt in our industry. It's unacceptable to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. I mean, this is something that for personally I've been doing a long time, 15 plus years, and you still go into some of these workplaces and it's amazing that it's like they've never heard of this before at all. And so you just feel like how do we spread the word more and how do we get the word out there? Um, but you mentioned, going back to basics. For you, I don't know if you want to pick maybe, one to three, like what are those basics? Like, what are and maybe more specific to the electrical field?
Yeah.
You know, what are some of those just to share with people?
Okay. Well, we've got to remember how electricity works. Simple things like Ohm's law and a basic circuit, whether it's a series circuit or a parallel circuit or a combination thereof. We got to understand how it applies to what we're doing, because almost everything out in the field is different. But one of the basic things that I think that for a long time the industry had a misconception about when uh, working things energized is the basic principle of grounding, and now bonding, and now equipotential bonding. And we got to realize that grounding is there to protect the system. It's not to protect us.
Hmm.
Now we do get some protections out of it, but doing personal bonding and creating a zone of equipotential when working energized, to me, there's no reason why we shouldn't. And we need to understand how to do that. But yet that's still in the industry. That's something that we see that's not accepted very well. We still want to do bracket grounding or whatever we've been doing for years. We don't want to take those extra steps, but they're important extra steps. And so that's just one circumstance that we're faced with all the time, that we're just not paying as much attention to, and don't quite. I don't know. I guess we're thinking, well, we've done this for 20, 30 years and we're not getting hurt. Why should I change?
Hmm.
Well, there's a lot of good reasons why you should change, and we've just got to find that, how to change that individual's mind. because we're all a little bit different. And some people will change pretty easy and always follow the right path, and some people's going to fight us all the way.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure that out on an individual basis.
Yeah. So is there anybody that comes to mind, anybody you've worked with or trained that, you were able to change their mind, or you could see that the light bulb finally went off for them, and what was it that they learned, or you told them, or maybe it's a story, what is there anything that comes to mind there?
Well, we do a lot of live line bare hand training as well. And, with live line bare hand, you've got to kind of unlearn some things that you've learned because, you're really going to literally make yourself part of the circuit, be the same electrical potential. And in that training, we also talk about, well, okay, well, when you're not doing it, don't you want to just do the same thing? Don't you want to make yourself the same potential? And how do you make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of companies. It's been not too long ago, we had a company, and I'm not going to name the company, but we had a 34-year lineman in the class. And at the end of the first day, he comes and he says, I need to know more. And so we went that night and we had a little discussion in a local cafe. And the next day, then he kind of looked at things and he saw that a new light. And so I challenged him. I says, okay, so now you see and you understand this a whole lot better. Now, what are you going to do about it? And he says, what do you mean? And I says, well, you understand, but how about your coworkers?
Mm-hmm.
Can you help them? You work with them every day. You see them every day. They're family to you. Now that you understand this, don't you want to help save their lives as well? And he kind of looked at me and he says, he says, you're right. He says, now that I understand, I need to take that and I need to let everybody know that I'm around. So that was a good experience to have that light bulb pop on to him. But, he was a little resistant.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, that you mentioned that, and you mentioned early on, the big word that jumped out to me was leadership. You mentioned that as something that you focus on, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be taking safety one step further for this gentleman, or for anybody, to not only, you know, take it in and start to practice it yourself, but then to help your coworkers in that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what are some of the things, some of the ways that you would, you know, help either teach these leadership principles to someone, or maybe something you'd want to say to them?
Well, there's a difference between being a supervisor and being a leader. And I believe that most people have leadership qualities in them. We just got to find those qualities and then we got to build on them and teach them to understand why that's important. On every crew and every workplace, there are those natural leaders that really don't even really know they're a leader, but people follow them,
Yep.
people listen to them. We've got to search those people out and remind them of their role and what influence they have. And then stress the importance for them to help the others, their coworkers and people, make the changes that we need and be able to feel free about calling a timeout when you don't understand something and just work together. And I believe that most of our workforce has really good leadership qualities. You just got to bring it out. You got to be willing to take on that role a little bit because it's not a title. It's just a way of life.
No, that's good. And I've talked about this before, and this concept of positional leadership. A lot of people end up in a supervisor or a manager role, and maybe they got there because they were the best electrician, but they're far from an actual leader. And then you're right, you got these other people who doesn't seem to matter what they do, but just people follow them, and those are the ones that they are true leaders. And yeah, to have them with the knowledge of of safety and the importance of it, and then to be able to bring that knowledge to other people is extremely important. But so
Yeah.
so your field specializes more in utility and kind of everything that's involved with that. So you're talking about equipotential grounding. Um, going back to those basics again. Is there something that you think's very important that you would think that maybe every single electrical worker, no matter if you're a utility or not, that they can kind of use to, let them have a better day this day.
There's a couple of little books that I was told to get when I first got into the trade. One was an Uglies book, and two was the Lineman's Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't care whether you're high voltage or low voltage, both of those little reference books tell you an awful lot. They've got it right there for you to look at. But we've really got to understand how electricity works. We're in the electrical field. It is a hazardous field.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also some of the best trained people, but we've got to kind of get back to basics and things like Ohm's law and circuits, and whether it's a Y or a delta configuration, whether it's the high side or the low side, or you go into the generation side, they're working a 480, that's a voltage that's got more fault current than almost any other voltage.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand those things about the different aspects of the things that we're working on. And there's two references there that give you so much information. You just got to be willing to go out and dig it up and then apply it to what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
I can remember working on a 480 volt 3-phase motor and getting knocked back because I was not, I figured that I knew, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very lucky that day that I didn't get hurt, but it's just really back to the basics with things that we should know and we should apply every day.
Yeah.
Minimum approach distances. Why would you want to get any closer? Than that. There's just those basic things that if we just go back to those principles and then we live by them, we'd all be much better off.
Yeah. Yeah. So just for everybody again, those two books you mentioned. The first one is Uglies, and is it just the electrical references, that book? Or?
Yeah, the electrical reference book. Yeah, that
Okay.
little $35 book now.
Yeah. And then what was the other one you mentioned?
The Lineman's Handbook.
Lineman's Handbook. Okay.
It's this little pamphlet too.
Yeah.
And they both talk about, electrical theory and how electricity works and all of the different ways to put things together. The Uglies reference book has got many things in it, as well as the Lineman's Handbook that you can just go and remind yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you've gone through an apprenticeship or where you're at in your career, these are things that any layman can understand. Mm-hmm. And they're good principles.
Do they focus on safety in there, or is it more just the understanding, like you're mentioning, like just understanding?
It's the understanding of how things work.
Yeah.
But if we don't understand how things work, how can we stay safe?
No, that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
It leads right into safety. Yeah, but you can't stay safe. You can't exhibit safe behavior if you don't know how things work that you're working on. How it's set up, how the system's set up, how the particular configuration, if you get up on a pole and a transformer sits staring at you in the eye in a 3-phase transformer, you need to understand how it's wired.
Yeah.
Because you can't stay safe if you don't.
No, that's a great point. And that's something too, I know it comes up a lot of times in the, people kind of hum and haw about what's a qualified electrical worker mean, and are you qualified? And, the way I look at it is there's two things you need at least to have that. And one is just what you're saying, the understanding of what you're actually doing from a technical perspective. Then the other side of it is the safety related work practices and knowledge there. And there's no one, you have to have both of those, or else you can't really move forward in today's workplace. So no, that's fantastic. I guess from here, just curious, is there, if people wanted to kind of reach out and connect with you, is there anywhere, whether it's LinkedIn or maybe just your email, I don't know, what would be the best place if someone had a question for you or maybe want to get in touch about training?
Okay. And we're happy to answer questions at any time, but my email is Mack, M-A-C-K, like the truck, at ISPConline.com. That'll get you to our website. That'll get you to me. Also, I'll answer the phone about any time here. I have customers from overseas that call me in the middle of the night. I'm kind of used to it. And so I'll pick up the phone. We'll have a good conversation, if you need stuff. But my contact information is there on that that email.
Yep.
Our website is ispconline.com. That'll tell you a little bit about our company and what our mission is and what we can do. We want to help. We want to be there as part of the solution. So I would encourage anybody to take advantage of any resources that's available to them. Nobody knows everything. Everybody's got a little bit different way of looking at things, and what one person or one company says might not appeal to you, but as you go out and you research things, you'll find something, and that light bulb will switch on.
Perfect. Mack, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, thanks again. Thanks a lot.
Okay, appreciate the opportunity. You all have a wonderful, safe day.